technology. It's all around us. It's our way of living. Our lives have been formed through technology. From how we travel, from cars to planes to even bikes. How we communicate over our phones or computers. And how we live as the newest people. But how has it influenced our generation? Generation Z. Motorized transport, the star of the technological world. Vehicles help people get from point A to point B. In the early 1700s, the first plans for the internal combustion engine were invented by Christian Huygens. However, it was not built until the 1860s. Vehicles come in many different shapes and sizes, with many different features as well. One of the lowest of the motorized technological vehicles is the Reva G-Wiz. This car can barely be classified as a car. You need a motorcycle license to drive it, and it qualifies as a quadricycle in the UK. One of the most technologically advanced vehicles is the Tesla Model S. This car is semi-automatic driving, using technology that allows for the car to have a 360-degree view of the road around it. This allows for automatic lane changes while driving on the highway. Auto steer. Assisted steering with cruise control that matches speed to traffic. Side collision warning helps to avoid potential collisions with fast approaching vehicles. Summon. One can automatically park and retrieve the vehicle. Automatic parking. Parallel and perpendicular parking with a single touch. And emergency braking detects objects and automatically applies brakes to help avoid or lessen the impact. These cars are both very important, not only because they are different, but because they are similar. Both cars have had an influence upon Generation Z, for the Reva G-Wiz, inspiring us to never make a car like it again. For the Tesla Model S, inspiring us to push past the current limits that we are restricted to, allowing for Generation Z to improve the way we travel. From cars to planes to all their forms of transportation. Being surrounded by this motorized technology keeps the people of Generation Z thinking of ways to help the way they travel and keep us safe. Cars are not the only way we travel. Public transportation is very important to the way we live. Public transport helps millions of people get to work every day. From planes to subways to trains and many other ways to get groups of people from one place to another. Planes are a large factor in how people travel, transporting hundreds of thousands of people per day to many different locations around the world. Some people use planes to go on vacation and others for work. Those who use planes for traveling trips often don't realize the tech and difficulty of flying a plane designed to keep hundreds of passengers safe within the plane as they travel from one place to another. The Boeing 777, one of the most technological planes flying the skies, was designed in part by 8 major airlines: All Nippon Airlines, American Airlines, British Airways, Cathay Pacific, Delta Airlines, Japan Airlines, Qantas, and United Airlines. By March 1990, Boeing and the airlines had decided upon a basic design configuration: a cabin cross-section close to the 747's, capacity up to 325 passengers, flexible interiors, a glass cockpit, fly-by-wire controls, and a 10% better seat mile cost than the A330 and MD-11. However, that isn't as important as the fact that it's the first aircraft to be designed entirely by computer, proof that the technology is a huge factor in keeping people safe. This was the first plane to be designed by computers, a huge milestone in the tech world. Subways and trains, both very similar in perspective. The main differences are that subways are designed to help transport people within cities, and trains are used more so to transport people to and from cities. The first train was built in the early 1800s, and since then, transport based upon rails has increased by the tenfold. Bullet trains, a concept many have heard of, are advancing quickly. Currently, the fastest speed record for a bullet train is 603 kilometers per hour, held by Japan's maglev train, much faster than the first train, which peaked at 8 kilometers per hour. Trains have become very technical, and the people of Generation Z as well as previous generations, are inspired to push the technology further, hoping to accomplish the task of helping people travel in a much quicker, faster mode of transportation. When you hear the word technology, the people of Generation Z think of phones, computers, or TV. The newest iPhone, or the most advanced computer, or the biggest, most HD TV. How did we get here, to the place where our technology is so advanced? Over the past 300 or more years, technology has been pushed again and again, allowing for our current advances into a newer, energy-saving world. Computers. 1703. Gottfried Leibniz pioneers the binary number system, now used in virtually all computers, the earliest form of modern technology. In 1801, Joseph Marie Jacquard invents the automatic cloth-weaving loom. The punch cards it uses to store patterns help to inspire programmable computers. In 1868, Christopher Latham Scholes invents the modern typewriter and the QWERTY keyboard. By 1947, John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley invent the transistor, which allows electronic equipment to be made much smaller and leads to a modern computer revolution. In 1958, Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce, working independently, developed the integrated circuit, and by 1959, IBM and General Motors developed the Design Augmented by Computers-1, or DAC-1, the first computer-aided design, CAD, system. Only 5 years later, in 1963, Ivan Sutherland develops the Sketchpad, one of the first computer-aided design programs. In the 1960s, Douglas Engelbart develops the computer mouse. In 1971, Ted Hoff builds the first single-chip computer or microprocessor. By 1973, Robert Metcalfe figures out a simple way of linking computers together that he names the Ethernet. Most computers hooked up to the internet now use it. 3 years later, in 1976, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs launched the Apple I, one of the first personal computers. Stung by Apple's success, IBM releases its own affordable personal computer, PC, in 1981. In 2001, Wikipedia, online encyclopedia, is founded by Larry Sanger and Jimmy Wales. In 2005, a pioneering low-cost laptop for developing countries called the OLPC is announced by MIT computing pioneer Nicholas Negroponte. Reaching 2010, Apple releases its touchscreen tablet, the iPad. 5 years later, in 2015, supercomputers, the world's fastest computers, are now a mere 30 times less powerful than the human brains. Just recently, in 2016, Apple released the MacBook Pro, one of the most advanced computers for the average consumer available. Television. In 1888, Frederick Reisinger discovers liquid crystals, helping the creation of LCD screens and displays. By the 1890s, French brothers Joseph and Louis Lumiere invent movie projectors and open the first movie theater. In the 1920s, John Logebard develops mechanical television. Also in the 1920s, Philo T. Farnsworth invents a modern electronic television. Both inventions help with the modern way of television. Nearing the 1930s, Peter Goldmark pioneers color television. In 1987, Larry Hornbeck, working with Texas Instruments, develops the DLP projection, now used in many projection TV systems. In 1996, WRAL-HD broadcasts the first high-definition television, HDTV, signal in the United States. Reaching 2010, 3D TVs started to become more widely available. Photography. People use cameras daily to remember moments in their lives. Some use cameras to make a profit, such as dancer photographer Jordan Matter. In 1827, Joseph Nicepiece makes the first modern photograph. In the 1830s, William Henry Fox Talbot develops a way of making and printing photographs using reverse images called negatives. By 1883, George Eastman invents the plastic photographic film. These discoveries allow for the camera within the modern-day cell phone to be built. In 1969, Willard S. Boyle and George E. Smith invent the CCD, charge-coupled device, the light-sensitive chip used in digital cameras, webcams, and other modern optical equipment. Phones. Somewhere between 1830 and 1840, Charles Wheatstone and William Cooke in England and Samuel Morse in the United States developed the electric telegraph, a forerunner of the telephone. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell patents the telephone, though the true ownership of the invention remains controversial even today. In 1912, American chemist Gilbert Lewis describes the basic chemistry that leads to practical lithium-ion rechargeable batteries, though they don't appear practical or commercial form until the 1990s, the same batteries used for iPhones. In 1973, Martin Cooper develops the first handheld mobile phone. 2 years later, 1975, Field Diffie and Martin Hellman invent the public key cryptography. In 1994, Israel computer science Alan Cohen and Lior Hamarti invent VoLP for sending telephone calls over the internet. By 2007, Apple introduced the touchscreen cell phone called the iPhone. Phones are a huge part of Generation Z. Fax machines. In the 1840s, Scotsman Alexander Bain invents a primitive fax machine based on chemical technology. In the 1850s, Giovanni Caselli develops a mechanical fax machine called the pantelegraph. In 1938, Chester Carlson invents the principle of photography, exography. Fax machines are useful in sending people physical photographs, essays, articles, etc., when the person does not want said object to be ruined. Today, people use email or text and just send the object to another person. Fax machines will slowly become non-existent very, very soon. Radios. In the 1860s, James Clerk Maxwell figures out the radio waves must exist and sets out basic laws of electromagnetism. In the 1870s, Thomas Edison develops the phonograph, the first practical method of recording and playing back sound on metal foil. By 1877, Thomas Edison invents his sound recording machine, or phonograph, a forerunner of the record player and CD player. In 1894, physicist Sir Oliver Lodge sends the first ever message by radio wave in Oxford, England. By 1901, Guglielmo Marconi sends the radio wave signals across the Atlantic from England to Canada. Within the 1930s, Robert Watson Watt overlooked the development of radar. By the 1960s, James Russell invents compact discs. In 1983, compact discs, CDs, are launched by a new way to store music by the Sony and Philips corporations. In 2001, Apple revolutionizes music listening by unveiling its iPod MP3 player. Radios are a huge factor in how Generation Z uses technology, but similar to fax machines, radios are slowly dying out. These advances, from computers and phones to planes and trains, allow for modern-day people of Generation Z to stay more connected with their friends and family, traveling faster and being able to get to and from their homes in a much quicker way than ever thought to be possible. These advances also allow for people of Generation Z to be inspired to help tech within their lifetimes, to see how far they can push it before it has to stop, how far we can get with computers, perhaps 3D screens without any enhancing glasses, or planes that allow people to travel from Los Angeles to New York in a mere 2 hours, or even to allow people to one day have tech built into their body and allow for easier communication with other people. Needless to say, technology has only just begun. It's affecting the young people of Generation Z in a spectacular fashion.